Intro rules for this week, say 3 words and toss it. This week's lab.
We will measure temperature lapse rates.
Over 3 surfaces.
Asphalt, grass, and aggregate. Let's go!
Let's go!
I keep turning up the heat. Keep turning up the heat. Yeah, yeah, I'm a hustler. Yeah, yeah. Keep turning up the heat. I know the price is steep. They're gonna call me king. Yeah, yeah, I'm a hustler. Yeah, yeah, I'm a hustler.
In our previous lab, we learned about the relationship between albedo and surface temperature. We found that the surfaces with the lowest albedo had the highest rate of absorption, and they in turn ended up with the highest surface temperatures. The new asphalt, which had an albedo of around 5%, had a surface temperature of around 112, while the grass, which had an albedo of around 22%, had a temperature of 82. So the big question for this lab is what's going to happen as that heat energy leaves the surface and starts moving upward into the atmosphere towards our temperature sensors. For this lab, we're going to measure the temperature at a height of 1 meter and 2 meters to see if there is a temperature lapse rate between the 2 thermometers that is going to be different between our 4 different surfaces, which are going to be grass, aggregate, old asphalt, and new asphalt. Before we can measure the lapse rates, there is one thing we have to measure first. Actually, the first thing we have to measure is the calibration of our thermometers. Because these lapse rates between our 2 sensors are probably going to be on the order of a few tenths of a degree Celsius, it's important that we know what kind of differences there are between these thermometers. If the differences between our thermometers are greater than what we're trying to measure, then we're not going to be able to really trust our data. So after an hour of collecting data in my basement, it turns out that thermometer 1 and 2 have a difference of about 0.2 degrees Celsius. So after we collect our lapse rate data, we can just subtract 0.2 degrees Celsius from the warmer of the 2 thermometers to equalize the 2 data sets. So now it's time for the build montage. We're going to start this week's lab measuring over the old asphalt. But before we get to that, one of the things that we have to consider with this lab is going to be the impact of wind on our measurements. At the time that I was collecting the data, there was no wind at all. In fact, you can see here with the anemometer that there's not even a gentle breeze of any kind. So think about how that might influence these results compared to if it does get windier. One thing we should consider in this lab is that the bottom of the 2 thermometers should be warmer than the top, and that's because the bottom thermometer is actually closer to the radiating surface of the ground. In the case of the old asphalt, you'll notice that T1, which is 1 meter above the ground, is actually slightly cooler than T2, and that's because T2 is the warmer thermometer, so we're going to subtract 0.2 degrees Celsius from that top thermometer, which will ultimately make it cooler. And you can also note that the wind did pick up to 2 miles per hour by the end of the 5-minute period. One thing that was unusual is that the surface temperature of the old asphalt was much warmer than the aggregate, even though they had the same albedo last week. And I think it's because the asphalt was a little bit sloped towards the sun, and that accounted for the higher temperature. Now it was time to move over to the aggregate, and I have to say that I was really impressed at how helpful my boys had been during this entire experiment, since we weren't really fooling around as much during this lab as we were on our last one. As we moved over to the cooler aggregate sidewalk, you can see that the temperature did fall by a little over 0.5 degrees Celsius. And another thing that happened during this time period was the wind did pick up to around 4 miles per hour at times, but it was mostly calm throughout the recording period. Hey, do you guys want to do a frisbee golf battle?
Let's go! Let's go!
Okay, it's time to do a rock off to see who gets to go first in the frisbee battle. You ready? Boulder, Parchment, Clippers! Oh, Miles gets to go first. All right, now we get to see who goes second. Ready? Boulder, Parchment, Clippers! Boulder, Parchment, Clippers! Boulder, Parchment, Clippers!
Yes! Yeah!
For our first hole, we're starting from the driveway, going around the oak tree, and ending up down at the stop sign. Should be a par 4.
Miles here. Feeling good about this one. Let's go for the win. Let's go!
All right, I'm gonna keep this short. No way I'm letting these guys beat me.
Hey, this is Camden. I think I'm gonna win because one time you're playing, it was like a long time ago, you're playing frisbee golf, and I got a blindfold and I really actually strategy that I hope plays out well, and it probably will as long as it doesn't go, as long as it goes in the correct direction. If it goes off in the wrong direction, I might not get the par, but I got a blindfold one before. Maybe I'll be able to get one again. Let's go.
They're gonna call me king. Hey, I'm a hustler. Hey, I'm a hustler.
Oh, great roll. Great roll.
'Cause I'm always pushing through. I'm always going harder.
All right, time to put this one away.
Keep turning up the heat.
My dad gets a 1-stroke handicap.
What?
Turning up the heat. Hey, I'm a hustler.
Here's where we stand after 3 shots. Camden is over there in the bushes. I'm sitting here with my stupid 1-stroke handicap at 3. And then Miles is sitting close to the stop sign, also shooting for par. Oh, nice.
Oh no!
How the heck am I supposed to throw it from up there? I can't even reach it.
And that'll be another 1-stroke penalty.
I'm not messing around. Hey!
Let's go.
Good for more than just measuring temperature.
Isn't that gonna mess up our data though?
No, it'll be fine.
For the win! Yes! Woo!
Back to collecting data, and now we're measuring over grass. And one of the things we can see when we look at the data logger is that the temperature has fallen by another couple of tenths of a degree Celsius. And we can see that there's starting to become even more separation between the 2 thermometers, especially considering the fact that we're going to subtract about 0.2 of a degree Celsius from that top thermometer. Another thing that's happened during this measure period is that our wind is now mostly between 2 to 4 miles per hour, with gusts occasionally to 6 miles per hour. In case you ever wonder what professors do over the summer, this is what I did. I actually built all these steps and these garden areas in this dry creek bed here, as you can see. So the comm test for today is how many pounds or tons, you can choose, of rock did it take to build all of this. And if you guess correctly,
Will Pina.
for our final hole here, we're going to tee off on the hill, come all the way down across the backyard, and the hole is those black chairs surrounding the sycamore tree. All right, well, that was a disappointing finish. I can't believe I lost to a couple of 10-year-old kids. Stupid penalties.
We're gonna go 2 for 2. Let's go. My throws on the first hole weren't as good as I expected them to be. I'm gonna destroy on number 2. And I was gonna go them else, but
The big challenge on this hole is getting it through the trees. Miles first up.
let's
Whoa, what a shot.
go.
Stupid penalties.
I keep turning up the heat. Keep turning up the heat. Yeah, yeah, I'm a hustler.
All right, with the penalty, this will be a 3.
They're gonna call me king. Yeah, yeah, I'm a
Needs to hit it to tie.
Oh, we need to tie. Come on. I'm gonna re-edit this thing so I win.
This is how legends are made.
We're finally back to our final surface to measure, and it took about 15 minutes for us to move the tripod up to the road because we had to disconnect the temperature sensors and move everything and then wait for everything to cool down again because they got exposed to solar radiation and heated up to around 25 degrees Celsius, and it took about 5 or 6 minutes for them to cool back down to regular temperature. By this time of day, the wind had picked up to around 2 to 4 miles per hour with gusts up to 6 miles per hour again, although there were some calm intervals. What was interesting about the new asphalt is that the temperature sensors were actually among the lowest values of the day, even though the surface temperature of the road was the hottest surface that we measured. And by now, our lapse rates between the two thermometers was among the smallest values, which probably was caused by the mixing of the wind that was occurring at the time. You can see from the new asphalt that's been in the shade for a while, the temperature is much cooler. It's in the 70s here, so it's about a little over 20 degrees cooler than the asphalt temperature that has been exposed to direct sunshine all afternoon.
Looking at the city like I already own it.
Intro rules for this week: say 3 words, then toss.
You didn't say it.
Oh, yeah. Intro rules for this week: say 3 words and this week's lab.
Let's go like that. Asphalt, grass, and aggregate, grass, and asphalt. Or he said aggregate. He said aggregate. Asphalt, grass, and. This one's gonna be good. Let's go. I don't know what happened. I forgot my line.
It's been so long that you forgot what to say. Over 3 surfaces.
Asphalt, grass, and.
Oh, that was a good one.
For the win! Well, I really sucked, don't I?
We hope you guys enjoyed that video. Be sure to like and subscribe down below. You can check out our latest video over here. And we just opened up a brand new merch store, Meteorology 325 merchandise. We've got shirts, t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, everything, hats. And that's over here in this link up here. So signing off for now. See you guys next week.